that's why I'm here today to talk about WPP Media's approach to it. So for us, it's not really a buzzword. It's fundamentally part of how we do things and how we believe advertising can evolve for the better. So given that we are all in the MeasureUp conference, I'm fully aware everyone in the room is already thinking about the environmental impacts of our industry. So to start off, I'm going to ask everyone a question, and I really wanted to see a quick show of hands. When you hear the phrase sustainable media, what words immediately come to your mind? Is it more around it's a compromise? Is it mostly likely a trade-off? It's definitely more expensive to action, to do, and sometimes if you haven't done anything to do with this, it might give you a lower performance. Can I have a show of hands if any of these words have come across your mind? Great, thanks guys for your honesty. And that historically has been the single biggest perception and barrier that we have faced in order to progress in this area. And so hopefully in the next 8 minutes, I'm hoping to replace these terms with new sets of terms. These are efficient, optimised, and higher performance. This is because here at WPP Media, we have discovered that the journey towards to lower carbon emissions is not really compromised against your client's campaign performance. But in fact, it represents the most powerful and also the most overlooked lever that we can pull. Just take a moment to actually reflect on our journey at WPP Media and how we started all of this. Back in 2020, globally, WPP had conducted a thorough analysis based on analysing what are the carbon footprints coming from all facets of the business. And the results are very, very revealing. So what we discovered is that 98% of the emissions are coming under the category called Scope 3 emissions. So these are indirect emissions that are occurring throughout our value chain. And what's even more confronting is that 54%, so more than half of those Scope 3 emissions are originating from media. To give everyone a scale of what that 54% of media means, it's basically equivalent of driving a petrol car around the Earth equator for up to 250,000 times. So pretty hefty stats. But also this really represents the biggest impact as well as the greatest opportunity where we can really make a positive change. And because of that, WPP globally has set a very hefty target in order for us to reduce our carbon footprints for Scope 3. Here locally at WPP Media, this has also been embedded and ingrained within our culture under the umbrella of Project Alpha. So as the name suggests, Project Alpha is actually designed for Generation Alpha, which is believed to be the largest generation of population to live on this earth as we leave them. And I'm personally very passionate about this because I do have a Gen Alpha daughter and also a Gen Beta baby coming out next year. So nothing matters more to me personally than to actually do the right thing for the future generation. So underneath the Project Alpha umbrella, we have created the Digital Sustainability Initiative. And Amy Buchanan, who is our CEO, has been very invested and leaned into this product and this initiative as well. So all the work that you're about to see are basically designed with the purpose of making digital advertising better for the planet and future generations. So how do we even start to make this advertising better for the planet and future generations? We basically started the measurement journey back in 2023, actually. So this measuring phase that we encountered, we delved really deep into understanding what are the tools that we need to do to understand WPP Media's digital footprints from the ground up. So at the time, we searched a lot of measurement partners available to us at the time. The key thing we're looking for at the time is who can actually give us the most granular data when it comes to facing the complexity of digital ecosystem. And with that in mind, we've developed two tools. Firstly, a carbon calculator, which essentially looks at the carbon estimation of your campaigns during the planning stage. Then as the campaign goes live, with a partnership with a third-party measurement company, Scope 3, just to make things complicated, this is Scope 3 emissions and Scope 3 company, but essentially what Scope 3 company does is they're specialising in providing a very granular, precise reporting of your Scope 3 emissions within the whole media ecosystem. So with both tools, our clients will be able to understand exactly how the campaign's carbon footprints look like when the campaign goes live. So fast forward to 2025, we've done all of that. The key focus that we've been doing and primarily been working into is reduction. And the key goal for this is very simple and straightforward. That is, how can we lower clients' carbon footprints without significantly impacting the campaign performance? Sounds very simple, right? But it's really hard to do. What we had started initially is looking and evaluating what are the solutions available in the market. And through evaluating a lot of so-called carbon saving strategies, what we do realise is that most of them are singled across one simplistic approach, which is by blocking high emitting inventories. It sounds effective, and through some initial testing, we did see some decreases in the client's carbon footprints, but we quickly realised that campaigns' performance isn't always guaranteed. So we have actually come together as a team, shout out to Paolo in the crowd, who's been working really hard in developing this. What we have done is, instead of just blocking high emitting inventories, we're actually taken a weighted beating factor approach that really considers two things. Firstly, the client's KPI metrics by the campaign level, as well as the emission data sourced directly from Scope 3. So the unit of measure that we have applied for emission is called GCO2 EPM, which stands for grams of carbon emissions per 1,000 impression. So essentially what this does is that when your campaign goes live, the DSP, or demand side platform system that actually helps to run your campaigns, uses this combined weighted score as a guide to optimise your campaign. As an example, if a particular inventory has high in terms of performance matrix delivery and low in terms of carbon emissions in GCO EPM, therefore, this particular inventory will be prioritised against an inventory that has lower performance results and higher emitting outcomes. So by doing so, we actually can collectively produce a very promising result, which shows that the client's carbon footprints decreases over time. The best thing about this algorithm is that it's highly scalable and also very easy to implement across multiple campaigns simultaneously. So across 11 clients we've done to date and 31 campaigns utilising 3 different types of ad formats, we have collectively avoided about 5.5 metric tonnes of carbon emissions, which is equivalent of removing 39 round trips flights from Sydney to Melbourne combined from the air. So pretty good results, but the most important factor to highlight is that overall across all 31 campaigns, we've seen an average improvement of campaign performance by 15%. So that's really powerful stats that really highlights that being sustainable for our clients is definitely not a trade-off. It's actually a catalyst for enhanced performance. Looking ahead, we have a very ambitious goal. We wanted to basically deliver 600 million impressions using this carbon optimized algorithm by March 2026. So for us, it's not just about delivering big numbers, but rather actually making a tangible, large-scale difference in the digital footprints of carbon emissions. So I wanted to basically close by saying, for too long, the prevailing conversation has always been revolved around the perceived trade-off, which is planet versus profit, environmental impact versus financial investment. Hopefully with the data that we have showcased to you today, you now have a refreshed perspective on how our advertising can be more sustainable for our clients. We have proven by measuring what truly matters, we can unlock a more powerful equation for media efficiency. That is, lower emissions can directly lead to higher campaign performance and greater overall impact. So this is more than just a new metric for everyone. It's actually an advantage for all of us to look into and adapt where possible. We're not really decarbonising media. We are actually defining its new era. So the only question I'll leave for everyone today in the room is what impact will you choose to make? Thank you, guys.
Amazing, thank you. You can now come and have a sit down. After
Yes.
I realise I've had a front row seat for both seeing this presentation and then watching it again, and I still have lots of questions.
Sure.
It's a super inspiring topic, and I want to start by kind of going back to the beginning and asking you about the motivation for this, because it's obviously developed a. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah.
Sounds different.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about the motivation for all of this, because it's kind of seems like it's developed a bit of a life of its own now. But at some point, you and the team who put your neck out on doing this kind of started this really ambitious project. What was your motivation to begin with for you personally and for WPP?
Yeah, so when I first heard about Project Alpha, I was like, that's a cool name, what's it for? And then the more I actually read into it and realising, understanding that's actually for Generation Alpha, it actually brings home to my heart, because obviously I was raising my 1-year-old daughter at the time when I first picked up this project, and thinking, wow, they are going to inherit the earth. And it's, as a parent, I'm sure every parent in the room will probably feel the same, is that you do have the level of responsibility to creating a better future for your children. So that's one part. And also because we've been working in the media industry for a while now, knowing the really big impact that we are causing in the environment, it's really hard to not do anything about it, especially when you know that you have the opportunity to voice out your opinion based on the facts, and then to be able to make sure that you can change people's perspective by doing so. Even just the awareness part of it, I think, is what really motivated me in the first go. And then talking to my colleague Paula, also, she's like, you know what, just a simple thing such as not replying a thank you email can already save some grams of carbon emissions. So I just think it's simple passion like that that really motivates us to just move ahead with this project.
How amazing to be able to kind of live out your passion through your work life as well. And I was really struck when we were talking before this, when you said, and I'm sure you meant this very genuinely, that anyone can come up afterwards and ask you how you did this and you're happy to share it, which feels like quite a refreshing, quite brave sort of thing to say, really, as a media company, not to kind of keep your secret sauce to yourself. So there's obviously something in that there that shows that this is coming from a place of genuinely wanting to move the industry forward.
Exactly. So as Amy puts it, this is a purpose-driven project, and we're not supposed to make any profit out of it, which is quite interesting coming from my sales background, going to clients and saying we're not making money out of this. It's just literally about doing good for the environment. So yeah, if anyone in the crowd is interested in knowing more about what we did, happy to share what we did.
Amazing. But I guess thinking about this, I'm kind of struck by, you started from an ethical point of view, or from a really good point of view. This is now scaled to be massive. You're scaling it even further moving forward. Do you think, has the imperative for this shifted a little bit from being a conscience decision to a commerce decision? So has it become, you talked about it as a competitive advantage almost, or as an advantage that you don't want to be left behind. Is that because some of the metrics now you're seeing that 15% reduction in increase in performance metrics as well as reduced carbon? Is that now the sell to clients, or is it a bit of both?
It's about aligning to clients' own sustainability goals. So obviously we started with the purpose of, hey, let's do good for the environment, but then also knowing that if you read all the clients' end of the year reports, sustainability has been one of the key focus. And also for us, it's like, yes, we do understand this is what you're trying to achieve. And are you aware that also media plays an important role in terms of contributing to the overall carbon footprints? Here's the problem. However, here at the group, we actually have a solution for you to actually work with us to then develop what's best for your outcome. So that process has been a very rewarding process. It's not just about we can improve your performance, but rather you've got bigger and better goals, and we can actually align together to achieve a common purpose together.
Yeah, amazing. So I guess like better environmental outcomes, better performance for your clients. There's kind of, I'd imagine there's a lot of people sitting there going, well, why aren't we just doing this? And I'm sure probably a lot of that reason is because it's really hard. Talk to us a bit about the challenges when you were trying to get this up and running from zero.
Yes, the two challenges we faced was firstly the measurement part and also the reduction part. The measurement part, because we started our journey really, really early, we didn't have any guidance or framework to follow, even a benchmark to follow. So just the thought of how granular can we get at the time was the biggest topic of discussion amongst our teams. Obviously, prior to that, it's all about spend-based estimates, but now it's all about activity-based and understanding which vendor do we pick and how flexible are they in terms of working with us to develop a solution together versus how rigid are they. It's something that we all had to go through and evaluate a lot. Once we went through that hurdle, and then we're faced with a lot of data. Excuse the term, data. But what do we do with it? Like, what matrix of the data actually makes a difference? Is it just about what device you're delivering the campaign to? Is it about the time of the day, days of the week? It's about seasonality. Is winter actually causing higher emissions than summer? All of these are unknown questions which we didn't have any case studies or results from the prior examples to learn from. So it's just about us trying to come up with a suggestion and then working with our clients to establish a very stringent test and learn framework to try to test if that theory works. So between us establishing the measurement foundation versus us rolling out the very first reduction test, it took us the whole year to get to that place. So it's definitely a consistent learning journey.
Wow. And was there any point in that year where budgets were being looked at and people were questioning, a very personal question, but did you ever question whether this was going to get off the ground?
Oh yeah, 100%. There's just a lot of times where the traditional initial stages of testing just revolved us using a lot of block list at the time, and we're like, oh, 1 week, 40% reduction in emissions. All right, yeah. And then the next week it went up. So we're like, wow, okay, what's going to happen now? What's the course of it? What do we do differently? And so you constantly get that barrier and get that challenge. So it's not as straightforward as you do one change, you see immediate reduction. So that's something that we had to get used to, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've touched on it, and I'd just like to kind of focus a little bit on the activity-based measurement, the granular measurement versus spend-based. For us at Net Zero, that's really important. We are developing a framework at the moment called the GMSF, which allows you to measure consistently activity-based rather than spend-based. So we're big advocates for that spend-based, but that activity-based, sorry. But I guess I wanted to touch on why is activity-based granular data effectively the enabler of doing this. You wouldn't really have been able to do this with spend-based data, right?
No, so a lot of clients that we're dealing with at the moment, they all come from getting spend-based data for emissions at the beginning and then moved on to activity-based. Because if you do spend-based, it's really hard to understand what have you done differently versus the previous campaign. You can't really drill down to the granular level of detail of understanding, hey, is display channel actually delivering less emissions versus the video channels, because obviously the higher your spend, the higher the emission. But there's something else that lies beneath that spend level data that you can actually understand more through activity-based reporting. So that's something that we highly recommend, that if you can actually get down to the activity-based reporting, that it would be the most fundamental first step to do in order to figure out what's the best efficient strategy to do reduction.
And I guess without that granular activity-based data, marketing spend is effectively a cost in carbon, and that's not really where you want to be if you're a CMO either. So there's probably quite a good incentive to having an ability to be able to reduce it beyond reducing your budget.
Exactly. It's about investing in a different way, but more smart way.
Yeah. Was there anything surprising that came out of the data? You talked about all these different factors that you had to look into, like time of day, day of week, anything. Did anything that you weren't expecting jump out from that?
Not out of the ordinary. Naturally speaking, like during the day where there's more usage of the solar, so emissions are actually generally lower than during the night. Same thing as winter as well. So when you do factor in your reduction strategies, you kind of have to consider those anomalies and then trying to test whether or not whatever methods you're testing, it actually works in our environment. So that's why we recommend A/B testing. It's the best way to go for.
Yeah, great. I'm going to open this up to questions from the audience, but I just had one more question, I guess, to kick off the thinking about what this means for everyone else in the audience. If you had one piece of advice, having gone through this journey, I know you've said it's an open source playbook, so come and basically pick her brain and find out all these amazing things so that you can short circuit that journey. But if there was one piece of advice that you were giving to an organisation in the audience who are thinking, we should be doing this too, what would that be?
Always start your measurement, get that right, and then start integrating it with your campaigns, understand your baseline, and then through test and learn framework, working out what methods works for you the best in terms of getting that reductions for carbon emissions.
So just get started with the measurement.
Yes, that's great.
JJ, do we have any questions from the audience?
Let's find out. On the app, no. Currently, we have hands in the air.
Yes.
Or do we?
So good to see
I can't
interest in
multitask,
this.
eh?
Yes.
I'm a man.
And 4 questions on Slido. An avalanche of questions.
Could you mind passing this to Ivan?
Hi, thanks so much for the update. It's really refreshing to see WP coming out and taking some ownership on this really important subject. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, you're very much focused on digital impressions. Have you been having similar discussions with some of your analogue media partners, your TV networks, your radio stations out of home? And if so, what has come of those particular discussions? And the second part is, looking forward, we all hear about how carbon intensive the use of AI technology is, particularly Gen AI. I'm just wondering what you're doing internally to address how you might be increasing your use in that technology, but also being cognizant that you're trying to reduce your reductions.
Yes, that's right. So in terms of the first question about channel onboarding, we're working really closely with Scope 3 in terms of how they are expanding their measurement capability beyond just digital. I know linear TV is something they recently have just launched. So Paola and I are being actually tasked to really evaluate and scoping out what linear TV looks like and how the reporting will work for our dashboard. So that's something that we'll be working progressively over time, and it's been kind of on our roadmap to launch next year. Same with the rest of other offline channels, just really depending on the measurement capabilities from Scope 3, and then we will then launch. In terms of AI, I know that question is going to come up. So whether we actually believe it or not, we are already truly in the AI era. So every single company in this audience, including our clients, is already going on this AI journey. And also Scope 3 is already looking at the effects and the carbon reporting behind us using AIs. I'm personally interested in like the simple chat function versus using the agent versus using super agent. What are the effects to the environment from doing so? So as a company, we are definitely very aware of the environmental impact behind this. It's our duty to, what I suggested before, understand the measurement part of it. So currently, we don't know the full details of those actions when it comes to dealing with AI, but we're working really collaboratively with Scope 3 to do this. And then once we do understand it, it's about us taking a responsibility and collaborative and also conscious approach of how do we then use AI across our organisation that is not just abusing it. For example, if someone just says, I just feel very creative today, I'm just going to do a video generation of a colleague putting a mullet behind on his head, is that a very responsible use of AI? So these are the questions that we will be looking into as well.
I think if I could just build on that specifically on the AI piece, I think it's super interesting because we're learning, we're working all this out as we go, right? AI is new and we'll need to measure and know the impact. I think it's important to acknowledge that like AI gets a lot of headlines because of the water consumption, the energy consumption, the negative impacts. AI is also a really useful tool for finding efficiencies that humans aren't going to be able to find, for operationalizing seamlessly at scale a lot of the stuff that unfortunately we can't clone Shui Ying. So having that expertise at scale to be able to deliver what AI can deliver. So it's not to say there won't be an impact of AI, but it's in both directions. So I think what we've got to do as an industry is find that optimum balance to go, where do we use AI to find efficiencies, to find reductions in carbon, which is already happening, but then be mindful that that extra use of AI is not blowing out on the other side of the equation.
Just a quickie on the measurement bit too, with the help of Aramad Net Zero, there is a framework. You can work out your estimations. We've written a blog recently on to show how publishers can do it, top-level estimates, so you don't necessarily need a vendor. It is there, and you can start, and you can vary some of the variables, as it were, that are quite interesting in terms of timings and where your servers are located and devices and all of that. It does make so you can do it, the measurement piece.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that actually, because I did touch on the GMSF. That is a new framework that's been developed by AdNet Zero in consultation with both scientific experts to understand the impact rigorously and also the media industry to understand that side. The idea of that being that it will give consistent approach to measurement, taking into account the full life cycle from production right the way through to transmission and consumption of an ad, that entire life cycle of an ad across all media is taken into account. Exactly to JJ's point, so that everyone can have access to this data across the board. We're on time?
Yes.
Great.